Hi there guys, welcome to day 7 of the thinking experiment. I've got so much cool content to share with you, but I can only do one thing a day. So I'll keep sharing as much as I can coming through just to bring you into awareness of your thoughts and just how they're not very helpful and what to do with them. And that's what the thinking experiment's all about. If you do, or you are having thoughts that you don't know what to do about them, message me or pop them below. I'll do a video for you and just share what you can do about the thoughts the thoughts that are happening, not the thoughts that you're having. The thoughts are just happening, they're not who you are. And remember that the thoughts aren't who you are, because if you could see yourself having the thought, then who's the one that's watching you having the thought? It's the true you watching you have the thought, so the thought isn't you. So today I wanted to talk about worst case scenarios. It's something that's been coming up a little bit that I've noticed the last few days. And so worst case scenarios are super interesting because we want to look at why worst case scenarios come up. Now, worst case scenarios come up in our mind because it's our mind preparing us for the worst case scenario so that we're prepared for the worst case scenario. What it doesn't actually know is that in actual fact, anything can happen in the future, and then whatever actually happens in the future is based around our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, everything that's happening right now. So if we're acting from a place of worst case scenario, what do you think, or how do you think that's helpful? And how can we think that it's supposed to be helping us and preparing us for the worst case scenario, but in actual fact, it's saying that that's actually what's going to happen, and that it actually feels to our body like the worst case scenario is actually happening. So our body is thinking that it's actually happening, and it's responding in that way, which is the fight or flight, the fear, the stress, the anxiety, when it's actually not happening. Like, we need to acknowledge that right now, the worst case scenario is not happening. So we can choose. When we have a worst case scenario thought happening, we can then think to ourselves, well, I'm going to prepare myself for the worst case scenario. But at the end of the day, do you really want to be taking that on and putting that out there into the universe when in actual fact anything can happen? So you can turn it around and just say, well, the worst case scenario could happen, but what else could happen? What other possibilities are happening or could be happening right now? And that's where you can receive all the opportunities, all the possibilities that can happen, which will determine your actions right now, which will then change the future. So if you're acting only from the worst case scenario, your behavior is from only the worst case scenario happening, and the chances of that happening are much higher than anything else happening, because that's what your behaviors are set up for. That's what you're gearing up for. But if you're actually looking at all the things that can happen, and your behavior is from opportunity, and you're able to act from a place of creating your own reality, creating your own future, you will watch that the story of the worst case scenario doesn't even really need to exist, because at the end of the day, you'll be okay, even if the worst case scenario does happen. So watch the worst case scenario thoughts. They don't need to be there. They're not helpful. The brain thinks they're helpful because they're gearing you up for the worst thing that can happen. But at the end of the day, what is it really gearing you up for? And it's stopping you from getting access to all the other opportunities as to what else could happen. So make the choice, be aware of those thoughts, and start to be a master of your thinking and start to create the future that you do want, not the worst case scenario. See you tomorrow.